Oyez, oyez. The court is now in session. The Honorable John Sholden presiding.
You may be seated. Good afternoon or evening, whichever one you want to prefer. This is today the case of Gossan Flint versus Texoma Development Corp. Is the plaintiff ready to proceed?
The plaintiff is ready to proceed after a few pretrial matters.
Is respondent ready to proceed?
Your Honor, the respondent is ready to receive after some pretrial matters as well.
What pretrial matters?
Do you have permission to move about the well for openings, closings, directs, and crosses?
Yes.
How would you like to handle the swearing in of witnesses?
I will take care of that before they all get up here. Thank you, I appreciate that.
May we reserve up to 1 minute of closing time for rebuttal?
You may.
And may we introduce ourselves?
You may. You may proceed.
Good evening, Your Honor, members of the jury. My name is Catherine Jewett, and these are my co-counsel.
Good evening, Your Honor, members of the jury. My name is Nicholas Hoffman.
Good evening, Your Honor, and members of the jury. My name is Anonik Tep.
And we represent the plaintiff, Gossan Flint, in today's case.
Thank you. Do you have any pretrial matters that you would like to address?
Yes, Your Honor. May we introduce ourselves?
Yes, you may.
Good evening, Your Honor. My name is David Erdner, and along with co-counsel Lee Webb.
Good evening, Your Honor.
And Carolyn Caldwell. Good evening, Your Honor.
Good evening.
We represent the defendant, Texoma Development Corporation, in today's trial.
Thank you. Any other pretrial matters?
The defense is ready to proceed.
Thanks. You may be seated. All witnesses who will testify in this matter, please stand and raise your right hands. Do you promise that the testimony you're about to give will faithfully and truthfully conform to the facts and rules of the mock trial competition? Yes, sir. Thank you very much. You may be seated. Are we ready for opening statements?
Yes, Your Honor.
You ready for opening statements?
Yes, Your Honor.
Very good. Plaintiff, you may proceed.
May it please the court. They knew and didn't stop it. Texoma Development Corporation knew children were swimming on an abandoned quarry and on their property, and they didn't stop it. Under the law, a landowner is held liable for injury to children if the injury occurs by a danger that is likely to attract children. In this case, Texoma Development Corporation knew Jackson Quarry would attract children, and they didn't stop it. Good evening. My name is Anonik Tep, and along with my co-counsels Nicholas Hoffman and Catherine Jewett, we represent Gossan Flint, the mother of Ganisha Flint, in today's case. You will hear that the date is June 11, 2016. A young 12-year-old child named Ganisha Flint and his friend Shale Gabbro decided they wanted to go to Jackson Quarry. And when they arrive, they see Texoma Development Corporation's broken fence and a couple vague signs. So because of this, they ease their way into Jackson Quarry. And members of the jury, the evidence will show that shortly after reaching the edge of this dangerous rock quarry, Ganisha Flint lost his life by cracking the skull on rock ledges in Jackson Quarry's water. Now we, the plaintiff, sit closer to you because we hold the burden of proof in today's case. We have to prove our case by preponderance of the evidence, which means more likely than not. First, we have to prove that Jackson Quarry posed an unreasonable risk of injury. You will hear testimony from Tuff Scoria, who will come to the stand and testify that Jackson Quarry's rock cliffs were 20 to 25 feet high, that this rock pit is unsupervised, and that the water is deep and dark. Second, we will call to the stand Arcos Morrow, who will come to the stand and testify that Texoma Development Corporation's fence that they put around this dangerous death trap was ineffective. It was constantly broken, had multiple holes, and didn't stop children from entering. Second, we have to prove that the defendant, Chert Hornfels, knew or reasonably should have known of the risk. And the evidence will show that Chert Hornfels did know. Because when Shis Graywat comes up to the stand, she will admit that she informed Chert Hornfels and Texoma Development Corporation numerous times of children entering the property, and every single time, they didn't stop it. Third, we have to prove that the defendant failed to exercise ordinary care to protect Ganisha Flint from his tragic death. And you will hear testimony from Gossan Flint, who will come up to the stand and testify that her young child needed to be warned of the dangers in Jackson Quarry. And the evidence will show that Texoma Development Corporation's security measures were ineffective. The evidence will reveal an incompetent security guard, an often broken fence, and signs that provided no warnings of any danger. And last, we have to prove that because of Texoma Development Corporation's negligence, it was a proximate cause in Ganister Flint's death. Proximate cause means that the actions that led directly to Ganister Flint's death should have been reasonably foreseeable by a person exercising ordinary care. And members of the jury, the evidence will show that it was foreseeable that children would go onto the property and jump into the quarry. And therefore, the child's actions do not cut off liability from Texoma Development Corporation. Listen closely to today's trial. Listen closely to how Texoma Development Corporation kept the same ineffective security and kept on making the same ineffective repairs. And that is why, at the end of today's trial, my co-counsel Nicholas Hoffman will ask you to render a verdict in favor of the plaintiff. The only reasonable verdict. A verdict of liable. Thank you.
Thank you.
Your Honor, may the defense make an opening statement?
At this time, you may proceed.
May it please the court, opposing counsel, members of the jury. A philosopher once said, if the facts don't fit the theory, change the facts. That's exactly what the plaintiff has just done. Change the facts so you believe their story. But it's only a story. The truth will be shown to you today. And the truth starts with Ganister Flint. Choices he made and warnings he chose to ignore. Members of the jury, my name is Carolyn Caldwell. Today, it's my pleasure to represent the defendant, Texoma Development Corporation, today's trial. The plaintiff would like you to believe that TDC is a heartless corporation. The truth is that TDC is a family business, going out of their way to employ locals and even donating land for an elementary school. The people behind TDC, they're your friends, your neighbors. They're part of the community around you. We're not ignoring this loss. We're hurting alongside this mother. Now, even when we're hurting, we have to face the facts. And the facts lies in truth, evidence, and witness testimony that you will be shown today. Let's start with Ganister Flint. Ganister was a 12-year-old young man approaching 13. You'll hear he was a good kid, member of the math team and the chess club, a Boy Scout and the youngest on his swim team. A good kid with a history of bad decisions. Now, Ganister's maturity will come into question today. You will be asked to decide if Ganister was mature and capable of recognizing dangers. You'll hear testimony from his own mother today. Ganister was mature and capable to be left home alone and take care of himself. Ganister was a good kid, but he made bad decisions. On June 11, 2016, Ganister went to the Jackson Quarry with his best friend, Shale Gabbro. Shale will testify that when they got to the quarry, the first thing they saw was an 8-foot fence and a massive no trespassing sign. Shale begged Ganister to leave. He warned them that they could be arrested. Ganister ignored this warning, and he made a choice. Today you'll hear that within this quarry, there was a 25 to 30-foot rock ledge. In the water below, there were teenagers. Teenagers that Ganister had a history of trying to impress. One of these teenagers, Tough Squirrel, will testify today that they started encouraging Ganister to jump, daring him to use the rope swing that they had set up. You'll hear that Ganister hesitated, but he made a choice. He climbed to the top of that cliff. He started for the rope swing, but before he could grab it, Shale Gabbro grabbed his arm. He told him, "Don't be stupid," and he begged him one last time to leave. The fence, the signs, Ganister's best friend. His whole world was telling him what he was doing was wrong. And it wasn't just external things. Ganister himself put aside his common sense, and he made an informed decision. Members of the jury, at the end of today's trial, one thing will add up. Ganister, he pulled away from Shale. He got a running start. He grabbed the rope swing and he swung out over the water. A rope swing, a teenager's dare and a struggle to fit in cost Ganister his life. Members of the jury, ask yourself, what's the difference between June 11th and the 25 years preceding it? One thing, a rope swing. Nobody had ever gotten hurt at the quarry before. Before June 11th, before Tough Square and her friends put up this rope swing. The evidence will show that this rope swing had been put up once before, but it was taken down by the security guard Shis Graywalk. These teenagers, as Tough Square will testify, avoided the security guard because they knew she would do her job. If she found a hole in the fence, she'd fix it. If she found trespassers, she would kick them out, call the police, and make them leave. These teenagers avoided the security guard because they were warned not to be there. They were told not to trespass. Ganister was warned. Ultimately, it's heartbreaking, and we're hurting alongside this family. Ganister made choice after choice. He broke through an 8-foot fence, and he ignored all warnings, even from his best friend. Ganister's choices led to the events of June 11th. His choices led to a rope swing. Members of the jury, it's your responsibility to see the evidence, to look at the facts. The plaintiff would like you to believe that TDC is at fault, that they're liable. Now, that's not the truth. That's their story. At the end of today's trial, don't side with the story. Side with the facts. Find TDC not liable for choices that Ganister made. Thank you.
Thank you. Plaintiff may call their first witness.
The plaintiff calls Gossan Flint to the stand.
If you'll come on down, please. Please remember you are still under oath. You may proceed.
Please introduce yourself to the court.
Hi, my name's Gossan Flint.
Tell me a little about yourself.
I'm 37 years old. I'm originally from Minnesota, but I moved to Texoma not long ago. And most importantly, I am and always will be the mother of Ganister Flint.
Are you married?
I am. I got married in the spring of 2017. Beautiful wedding. But I was previously married to Ganister's father. Nice? And I know what you're thinking, but no. Nice was his name.
You said previously. What happened?
Ganister's father got sick with cancer back in 2015, and he died from it. It was a real big emotional roller coaster for me and Ganister both.
From what you observed, how did Ganister react to his father getting sick?
Ganister, he dropped out of everything. He left the math club. He left the chess club. My son even left the swimming team, and I tell ya, he was the best at that. He was the only 11-year-old to ever make the medley race. He was quite the little swimmer he was.
How did Ganister spend his time after he quit these activities?
Ganister would just go to school and then go straight to the hospital and be with his father. It was a lot to go through for anyone, even more so an 11-year-old boy.
Miss Flint, how did you react to your husband's death?
I just packed up my things. Me and Ganister, we made our way to Texoma. I couldn't stand being in Minnesota anymore. It just reminded me too much of Nice.
From what you observed, how did Ganister adjust to the move?
Ganister did a lot better than I anticipated. His grades were better. He was making friends. Everything was going as good as it could be for the circumstances.
Did you ever hear about Jackson Quarry?
I did.
Who told you about the quarry?
An apartment agent told me and Ganister both about the quarry.
When did this conversation occur?
It was January when me and Ganister moved to Texoma.
Did anyone from Texoma Development Corporation warn you about the quarry?
No.
Did anyone from Texoma Development Corporation tell you that the quarry could be dangerous?
No, they didn't.
Before your son died, did anyone from Texoma Development Corporation contact you at all?
No, they didn't.
Do you recall June 11th, 2016?
Of course. June 11th, 2016 was the day my son went to Jackson Quarry, but he didn't come home.
How did that day start out for you?
It was supposed to be a normal day for me. I just woke up and I went to work.
Did you know at the time that your son was going to the quarry that day?
No, I had no idea my son ever had any interest of going to the quarry.
Miss Flint, I know this is difficult for you, but how did you hear about your son's death?
I was at work, and that's when I got the call from the police. And in that moment, I realized I was never gonna see my son graduate. I was never gonna see my son get married because of what happened that day. Because of what happened when my son went to Jackson Quarry, I had to bury him. No mother should ever have to do that.
Pass the witness, Your Honor.
Cross-examination.
Yes, Your Honor. Miss Flint, first off, I'm sorry to hear about the death of your son, and I know this is difficult for you, but if you need a moment, let me know. One of the questions that the jury will be asked at the end of today's trial is whether or not Ganister was mature. So let's talk a little bit about that. Ganister was mature for his age, right?
I don't know how mature a 12-year-old boy can be.
Ganister was on the swim team back in Minneapolis, correct?
He was, yes.
Ganister was a Boy Scout.
No.
It's your testimony today Ganister wasn't a Boy Scout?
Oh, no, not anymore.
Right, but before the accident, Ganister was a Boy Scout.
Yes.
Right. And Ganister was also the youngest swimmer back in Minneapolis to make the medley relay.
Yes, he was.
Ganister was also mature enough to be left at home by himself, wasn't he?
I trusted him enough not to burn down the house, if that's what you mean.
Yeah, so Ganister was mature enough to be left at home alone?
I wouldn't say mature, no.
Ganister was mature enough to be a babysitter, though, back in Minneapolis, wasn't he?
No, my son never babysat.
So if another witness were to testify later on today that Ganister never babysat, would that surprise you?
No, that would be agreeing with what I just said.
If that Ganister babysat, I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry, you didn't say that the first time.
If Ganister was a babysitter and that was testified to by another witness, would that surprise you?
Oh, well, that's not true. My son never babysat.
Well, let's talk about Ganister's habit of doing some dangerous stunts. You would agree that Ganister was a skateboarder?
He was.
And is it true that you were worried about Ganister because he would do dangerous tricks on his skateboard?
Back in Minnesota, I'd seen Ganister do some dangerous stunts.
Right, Ganister would do these things back in Minnesota and the move to Texoma, correct?
No.
But Ganister was getting better about doing dangerous skateboarding stunts in Texoma, correct?
He wasn't doing any dangerous stunts in Texoma.
You never saw Ganister doing dangerous stunts in Texoma?
No.
In Minneapolis, you would warn Ganister not to do dangerous tricks, correct?
Of course.
But Ganister would ignore those warnings?
No.
And you saw Ganister being warned by Shale Gabbro, his best friend, correct?
I had heard Shale say once that what he was doing was too risky.
Right, but Ganister did it anyways, didn't he?
Did what exactly?
Did the dangerous stunt that Shale warned him not to do.
Oh, no. Ganister never did any dangerous stunts in Texoma.
In Minneapolis.
Oh, Shale didn't know Ganister in Minneapolis.
So it's your testimony that Shale never warned Ganister not to do dangerous stunts.
He warned him or he didn't warn him. He told him that things he was doing was too risky. But in Texoma.
But Ganister would still come home with scrapes and bruises in Texoma, wouldn't he?
Of course, he was a 12-year-old boy on a skateboard.
Now I want to move on and talk a little bit about when you found out about the quarry. You were cautioned by the real estate agent, correct? That helped you move on?
Yes, sir.
He cautioned you not to go anywhere near the quarry?
Objection, Your Honor, as to hearsay.
Your response?
Yes, Your Honor. We're not using this for the truth of the matter asserted, just what Miss Flint thought about the quarry and not whether or not that fact about the quarry is true.
Response, Your Honor.
No. Overrule the objection.
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes.
All right, moving on to, yes, so the agent did caution you?
Yes.
All right, and he told you and Ganister not to go anywhere near the quarry, correct?
That's right.
And isn't it true that Ganister was present on that day?
Yes, sir.
But Ganister still went to the quarry on June 11th, didn't he?
My son never knew it was dangerous.
That wasn't my question, though. Ganister still went to the quarry on June 11th, correct?
Yes, sir.
Now, you didn't know Ganister was going on June 11th, correct?
No, I didn't.
And as a parent, you would assume that Gannister wouldn't tell you when he was about to do something dangerous, correct?
Excuse me?
Gannister, would you assume that as Gannister's mother, Gannister would not tell you if he was about to go do something dangerous?
I'm sorry, I really don't understand what you're asking.
Yes, let me rephrase this for you. If Gannister was about to do something dangerous, do you think that he would go up and tell you that he was about to do that dangerous thing, or try to keep it a secret from you?
I have no idea. I'm so sorry.
All right, but Gannister didn't tell you he was going to the quarry on June 11th, did he?
No.
And you know there was a rope swing present on June 11th?
Yes.
And that's the rope swing that your son used in the moments before he died?
Yes, sir.
I want to move on and talk about the details of the quarry, Miss Flint. Now, isn't it true that you've never been to the quarry?
No, I haven't.
And you've never seen the fence around the quarry in detail?
No.
So you've never seen the holes in the quarry fence yourself?
No.
Miss Flint, do you know how often Chirp Hornfels, the CEO, would visit the quarry?
I don't. I'm sorry.
All right, do you know how often the security guard, Shish Graywap, would visit the quarry?
No, I'm sorry. Who are these people you're talking about?
Miss Flint, do you know anything about the security of TDC and how often they would fix the fence around the quarry?
No, I didn't even know who TDC was. I wish they would have contacted me.
So you knew nothing about the quarry before the accident?
No, I knew nothing about it.
And Miss Flint, you're suing TDC for negligence?
Yes, I was told that there was a fence to keep out kids, and I thought it would have done that.
Thank you, Miss Flint. Your Honor, we pass the witness.
Any redirect?
No, Your Honor. May this witness step down?
You may.
Your Honor, at this time, the plaintiff calls Tough Scoria to the stand.
Come down, please. Are you seated? Please remember you are still under oath. Make sure you keep your voice up so everybody on the jury can hear you. Okay? You may proceed.
Good evening. Could you please introduce yourself to the jury?
Sup. The name's Tough Scoria, but my friends, they all call me Hashtag.
How old are you, Mr. Scoria?
I'm 17 years old and just living that good life, you know?
Do you go to high school?
Dude, of course I go to high school. I go to John Wayne Memorial High School. I'm sure you've heard of it. Hashtag Go Zebras.
Mr. Scoria, are you involved in anything outside of school?
Yeah, man, I do synchronized swimming, cheerleading, and I also love doing mock trial. Hashtag mock is life.
Mr. Scoria, why are you here today in court then?
Well, I was there on that day that everyone's been talking about.
Where exactly were you?
The Jackson Quarry.
And what day was this?
Dude, I could never forget it. It was June 11th, 2K16.
So before we get into the events on June 11, 2016, let's talk about times prior. Did you go to Jackson Quarry before that day?
Oh yeah, it gets really hot during the summer down here in Texoma. I also like to go to the quarry to practice my swimming routines. You know, hashtag staying on that grind.
Can you describe the quarry to the jury?
Sure, it's like this big crater in the earth filled with some water. I take pictures of it all the time.
Your Honor, permission to approach opposing counsel, then the witness with what has been previously marked as Exhibit 4 for identification purposes.
Granted.
Let the record reflect that I'm tendering a copy to opposing counsel.
Record so reflect.
So, Mr. Scoria, what is this document?
Dude, this is my artwork. Well, it's one of the pictures I took of my boy Madison jumping into the quarry.
Has it been changed or altered in any way?
No, it's 100% original.
Does it accurately reflect Jackson Quarry as you remember it?
Yeah, it does.
And would this help aid your testimony in providing more details about Jackson Quarry to the jury?
Yeah.
Your Honor, at this time, the plaintiff moves to enter Exhibit 4 into evidence.
Any objection?
No objections, Your Honor.
Will be admitted.
Now, Mr. Scoria, using this document, could you provide more details about Jackson Quarry?
Your Honor, may I reposition myself to see the exhibit?
Absolutely.
This quarry, it's got some dark waters. And those cliffs, I'm talking like 20 or 25 feet. They're huge.
Is this quarry supervised?
No, it wasn't.
Well, is Jackson Quarry surrounded by anything?
Yeah, they got a fence around it. But every time that I've gone, that fence has been broken.
Mr. Scoria, was the fence ever fixed?
Objection, Honor, speculation. This witness can only testify based off of his personal knowledge and not the entirety of when the holes were fixed.
May I respond?
Response?
Yes, Your Honor. The witness will confine his answer to his personal knowledge. He's not going to speculate on this answer.
Rephrase your question.
Yes, Your Honor. Now, from your observations, Mr. Scoria, was the fence ever fixed?
Sort of. Some of the chain links were put back up on the fence, but there was still a big hole in the fence.
And how long was that big hole in the fence there for?
2 whole weeks, 14 days, 336 hours. It's crazy.
So, Mr. Scoria, moving on to June 11, 2016, how did that day start out for you?
Well, it was the middle of summer, and I was sweating to death. So I hit up my buds and offered to go swimming down at the quarry.
Did you go to Jackson Quarry before, on June 11, 2016?
Yeah, after me and the dudes ate some lunch, and I remember because we were listening to that song, Orange Snow by Popper, you know, guy's great. And then we went down to the quarry.
How did you get into Jackson Quarry on June 11, 2016?
We just hopped through that big hole in the fence. It was super easy.
Did anyone stop you from getting into Jackson Quarry on that day?
No, we were in and out.
So when you eased your way into Jackson Quarry, what did you do?
Well, there's this tree that hangs out from the edge of the cliff. So, me and the guys, we decided to put up a rope swing. Hashtag LLT. Living like Tarzan.
So, Mr. Scoria, did you ever see Ganister Flint on that day?
Yeah, we did.
Was Ganister Flint with anyone?
He was with his friend up at the top of the cliff, the west side.
Did you ever see Ganister Flint separate from his friend?
Eventually, he did, right before he used the rope swing, and he shortly died.
After seeing this, Mr. Scoria, did anyone call 911?
Yes, as soon as I pulled him to the shore, I told his friend to go call 911.
So, Mr. Scoria, did anyone from Texoma Development Corporation tell you that Jackson Quarry was dangerous?
No, no one.
Were there any signs saying how dangerous the quarry was?
No, not even one.
And for the numerous times you went to Jackson Quarry, did anyone stop you?
I go to that quarry all the time, and no one has stopped me once.
Were you even aware that Jackson Quarry was dangerous?
Of course not. If I had only known how dangerous the quarry actually was, I wouldn't have dared him to jump in.
And if you had known that Jackson Quarry was dangerous, would you have ever gone?
Definitely not.
Your Honor, may I publish Exhibit 4 to the jury?
You may.
And at this time, we pass the witness.
Permission to cross, Your Honor?
Hold up. You may proceed.
Now, Mr. Scoria, my name is Carolyn Caldwell, and I'm going to be asking you a few questions.
Sounds good.
So, Mr. Scoria, you were at the Jackson Quarry on June 11th, right?
Yes.
And you entered, as you testified, through a hole in the fence.
Right.
A hole that had been previously covered with a no trespassing sign, correct?
Right.
And you had seen this no trespassing sign, hadn't you?
Yeah, the one over the hole?
And as you testified, you've been to the quarry before, so you've had personal experience with this sign, right?
Yeah.
Would you recognize this sign if I were to show it to you?
Definitely.
Your Honor, permission to approach with what was previously marked as Exhibit 5.
Granted.
Opposing counsel? Now, Mr. Scoria, take a moment to look this over if you need, and when you're ready, can you tell me what I've handed to you?
This is one of the no trespassing signs that they had up at the fence.
Is this a fair and accurate representation of one of those signs?
Yeah, I would say so.
Have any apparent changes been made?
No.
Your Honor, we offer Exhibit 5 in evidence.
Any objection?
No objections, Your Honor.
Will be admitted.
Now, Mr. Scoria, can you show this sign to the jury and read it aloud?
Sure. No trespassing, hunting, or fishing. Violators prosecuted under penalty of law. 279-555-0160. Owner.
Now, as you just read, the sign says no trespassing, doesn't it?
Right.
And you read this sign, didn't you?
Yeah.
And you trespassed, didn't you?
Objection, Your Honor, as to relevance. As this is an attractive nuisance case, trespassing is not an issue and doesn't go towards any counts in today's case, and therefore would be irrelevant pursuant to 401.
Your Honor, may I respond?
You may respond.
This is entirely relevant. Opposing counsel is here saying that TDC's negligence led to Ganister's death. However, we're here today to discuss the security measures that TDC had in place, one of which being this no trespassing sign, warning the community to not be in the quarry. This is entirely why we're here today and relevant.
Overrule the objection. You may answer.
So you read this no trespassing sign, correct?
Yeah, I did.
And you trespassed, didn't you?
Yeah, it's really easy.
So let's talk about June 11th. Ganister didn't just jump into the quarry, right?
No, he did. Well, he used a rope swing.
He used the rope swing that you and your friends had set up as you testified, right?
Right.
Now, a couple weeks before, you and your friends had another rope swing up, right?
Right.
And this rope swing had been taken down by what you assumed was a security guard.
Yeah, I think that's what he did. Hashtag no fun.
But on June 11th, you put this rope swing up once again, didn't you?
Yeah, we all did.
And it was up for about 30 minutes before Ganister used it, wasn't it?
Right.
Mr. Scoria, do you believe what you did was wrong?
Now I do, but at the time, I just wanted to have some fun.
Now, Mr. Scoria, do you believe that the rope swing was a cause of Ganister's death?
No.
Is it your testimony today that you don't believe the rope swing led to Ganister's death?
Not that it caused his death, that it led to his death, maybe, but not that it caused it.
Do you recall making a fact statement?
Yes.
And in this fact statement, you're sworn to tell the truth, correct?
Right.
Would you recognize this fact statement if I were to show it to you?
Yeah.
You're under permission to approach the witness with their fact statement.
Granted.
Opposing counsel?
Your Honor, may I ask opposing counsel what line they're referencing to?
You may.
Page 2, line 10 through 14.
You may approach the witness.
Oh, thank you, Your Honor. This is your fact statement, correct?
Right.
And this is your signature.
Yes.
And this is your addendum with your signature as well.
Right.
Now, follow along silently while I read aloud.
Your Honor, before opposing counsel begins, I must object to hearsay pursuant to 801 D1A, as this is not a prior inconsistent statement. It would still fall under the hearsay. It would still fall under hearsay because the witness has not contradicted his fact statement.
Your Honor, may I respond? This witness has contradicted their fact statement. I asked this witness, do you believe that the rope swing led to Ganister's death? This witness testified no, even after a clarification. However, in the witness's fact statement, he testifies that as a result of the rope swing.
Hold on. You're just stating that the statement is going to say something differently, correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
Thank you. Overrule your objection.
Now, follow along silently while I read aloud. Well, the smaller kid pulled away from his friend. Line 10 on your fact statement.
All right.
Well, the smaller kid pulled away from his friend and ran to the tree, grabbed the rope swing, and began swinging out over the edge. But I think he misjudged when to let go. He was starting to swing back towards the cliff edge when he let go. As a result, he dropped into the water closer to the rock wall than we had been landing. Did I read that correctly?
100%.
Now, that was your fact statement, wasn't it?
It was.
And you testified that as a result of your rope swing, Ganister swung back closer to the cliff, correct?
Yes. Not that it killed him.
And after Ganister used your rope swing, he fell into the water, didn't he?
It was all of we all put it up. But yes, that's what happened. He fell
And
into the water.
Moments later, he died, didn't he?
He hit his head on hidden rock ledges and it killed him, yeah.
Now, Ganister used your rope swing after you dared him to, correct?
Right.
It was after you had dared him to that he took off his shirt, correct?
Right.
After your friends had started calling him a chicken, did he take off his shoes?
Yeah, he did.
After your friends started taunting him, did he use your rope swing, correct?
It was all of our rope swings, and I wouldn't say
Now,
taunting.
Mr. Scoria, let me redirect you to my question. It was after your friends started taunting him, did he use your rope swing, correct?
I wouldn't say taunting. We dared him.
After you started daring him, did he use your rope swing?
He used the rope swing, yeah.
And Ganister Flint died moments later, correct?
Hit his head on hidden rock ledges, yeah.
Thank you, Your Honor. We pass this witness.
Redirect.
Yes, Your Honor.
You may proceed.
Mr. Scoria, using Exhibit 5, could you hold that up for the jury?
Yeah.
And could you please read the last part of that sign?
Violators prosecuted under penalty of law.
And as far as you know, Mr. Scoria, was anyone ever prosecuted under penalty of law?
No, no one.
Did any of your friends get arrested?
Nope.
Now, let's clarify something that was brought up on cross-examination. You said that the rope swing didn't cause Ganister Flint's death. What did you mean by that?
What caused his death was he hit his head on hidden rock ledges. That's what killed him.
Were you even aware that the rock ledges were there?
No.
Were there any signs telling you this?
No.
In fact, did anyone from Texoma Development Corporation inform you at all that there was rock ledges in Jackson Quarry?
Nope.
Pass the witness, Your Honor.
Brief recross, Your Honor.
You may proceed.
Now, Mr. Scory, because you read this sign, you knew no trespassing, correct?
Yeah.
And because you read this sign, you knew that if you trespassed, you could be prosecuted by the law, correct?
No.
You didn't know that based reading off of this sign.
Well, it never happened,
Well,
so
can
I
you hold
didn't
up
think
this
so.
sign and read it aloud to the jury?
No trespassing, hunting, or fishing. Violators prosecuted under penalty of law. 279550160.
Regardless, you saw this sign, correct?
Yes.
And you chose to ignore it, didn't you?
Yeah, we all did.
And you chose to break through that 8-foot fence, correct?
Yeah.
In a hole that you and your friends had created.
No.
In a hole that was in the fence, right?
Yes.
That you and your friends had covered with the no trespassing sign, correct?
Right.
Thank you, Your Honor. I pass this witness.
Thank you. You may sit down. Call your next witness.
The plaintiff calls Arcos Marl to the stand.
Come on down, please. Please remember you're still under oath. Make sure you keep your voice up so everybody on the jury can hear.
Yes, sir.
You may proceed.
Please introduce yourself to the court.
My name is Arcos Marl.
What do you do for a living?
I run my own private investigation company right here in Texoma.
And how are you qualified for this job?
I received a joint master's in forensic accounting and criminal justice from the Texoma Business and Technology Institute.
How did you get a private investigation company started?
First, I got my private eye license from the Texoma Department of Public Safety, and that, along with my involvement in the community neighborhood watch, made it a simple matter to run my business from my home.
What do you do as part of the neighborhood watch?
It is what it says. I watch the neighborhood for any shady business.
Well, why are you in the neighborhood watch?
I want my neighborhood to be a place where I can safely raise my children.
How do you make sure that happens as part of the neighborhood watch?
Well, it's nothing much. You know, a call here, an email there. Mostly whenever I see something shady, I let people in power know that something needs to be done to protect our community.
So, Mr. Marl, where do you live?
I live just off Chalk Lane in the Town Lake developments.
You said Town Lake. Is there a lake near your property?
As far as I can see, and I can see pretty good, the only thing that looks like a lake is Jackson Quarry, which has always puzzled me.
Why did that puzzle you?
It's called Town Lake. So of course I thought I'd be in a town with a lake. And to my surprise, the only lake they had there ain't your ordinary swimming hole, that's for sure.
To your knowledge, who owns this quarry?
Texoma Development.
How did you feel about the quarry's presence?
I've always been worried about that quarry, since Texoma Development wouldn't fill it in or at least drain the water. It was almost asking for children to sneak in.
Well, did children sneak in?
Yes, sir. Children from my neighborhood that would ride their bikes down Chalk Lane into the woods surrounding the quarry. Even my 13-year-old daughter, Bianca, snuck in, and as I've been told, I'm a bit of a strict parent.
Well, if children were sneaking into the quarry, how did Texoma Development Corporation attempt to secure it?
I wouldn't use the word secure. All they did was put up a couple no-good signs, posted a security guard when she was there, and there was a fence there that was holier than a priest at a Bible convention, let me tell you what.
What do you mean about the fence?
I would monitor that fence in my neighborhood watch rounds, and there were holes everywhere in that fence.
And what did you do when you saw these holes?
One day, I got so fed up with seeing these holes that I took a picture of one. I thought if Texoma Development would see these pictures, they'd stop changing the facts.
Your Honor, permission to approach opposing counsel and then the witness with what has been previously marked as Exhibits 2A and 2B for identification purposes.
Granted.
Let the record reflect that I am tendering a copy to opposing counsel.
Record will so reflect.
What are these documents?
These are some pictures I took of that one hole in Texoma Development's fence around the quarry.
Do they truly and accurately depict the holes in the fence?
Yes, sir.
And are they a true and accurate copy of the pictures?
Yes, sir.
And when did you take these pictures?
I took these pictures before Ganister Flint passed.
Your Honor, at this time, the plaintiff moves to enter Exhibits 2A and 2B into evidence.
Any objection?
No objection, Your Honor.
No objection being made. They will be admitted.
Did you show anybody these pictures?
Yes, I showed Texoma Development employees these pictures twice.
Who did you tell first?
First, I showed these pictures to Shis Graywack.
Who's Shis Graywack?
Shis is that security gal over there who I would maybe see around the quarry twice a week.
How did Miss Graywack respond when you showed her these pictures?
She just brushed me off.
Who did you tell next?
The very next morning, I showed these same pictures to Texoma Development's secretary.
How did she respond?
She also just dismissed me, seemingly without a second thought.
Objection, Your Honor, to speculation. She can't testify what the secretary was thinking, only to the secretary's physical actions.
It's already been answered. You're too late. Overruled.
So can you hold the exhibits up for the jury?
Yes, sir.
Based on what you can see in those pictures, how did Texoma Development Corporation attempt to fix these holes?
I wouldn't call them fixed. Just put zip ties on this fence, bless her heart.
Objection, Your Honor, to speculation. He has no personal knowledge as to who actually put these fixes on the fence, and that is a fact in contention in today's trial.
Any response?
Your Honor, this witness interacted directly with Shis Graywack at the fence line. I think this witness would know that it's more than likely that Shis Graywack was the one that put on those repairs.
Sustain the objection.
Based on what you can see in these pictures, how did somebody attempt to fix these holes?
As I said before, there were zip ties on that. Who's that gonna keep out? And it only fixed half the hole, too.
What do you mean about it only fixed half the hole?
In this picture, when the fence ring was cut, both sides of the fence split from the middle pole. Now, one side is zip tied back on, but the other side isn't. Now, I don't know if whoever fixed it ran out of zip ties or just ran off, but that there's still a hole.
Well, Mr. Morrow, if the holes weren't getting fixed, was Texoma Development Corporation at least warning the community about the dangers in their quarry?
They claim to have at least.
What do you mean by that?
Shis claimed to have gone to one of our PTA meetings to speak about the quarry. Now they must be changing the facts again because I'm the treasurer of the PTA, but I never saw Shis at any of our meetings.
Mr. Morrow, did you ever see any public service announcements about the dangers in the quarry?
No, sir.
Did you hear about any town hall meetings about the dangers in the quarry?
Again, no, sir.
Did you at least see any flyers about the dangers in the quarry?
I can't say I have.
Did you, as a parent of 2 children in the Town Lake community, ever see any attempt by Texoma Development Corporation to warn the children of the community about the dangers in their quarry?
No, sir, and to be honest, that scares me.
Why did that scare you, Mr. Morrow?
On that day when Ganister, when he fell, my baby girl was there too. She went through the same hole in the same fence. Bianca stood at the same rock ledge as Ganister, and I don't know what I would do if it were her that had jumped in that day.
Your Honor, may I publish Exhibits 2A and 2B to the jury?
Granted.
With that, Your Honor, we pass the witness.
Cross.
Yes, Your Honor. I'd like to talk about something you just said, that you never saw Shis Graywack at any of the PTA meetings. You said that, didn't you?
I didn't.
But the fact is, you didn't go to all the PTA meetings, did you?
I might have missed 1 or 2 at most.
Mr. Morrow, you might have missed or you did miss.
I missed 1 or 2 meetings, but even if Shis had gone, that wouldn't have changed anything.
It's your testimony that if Shis Graywack had gone to a PTA meeting and warned the community that the quarry was dangerous, that wouldn't have changed anything?
No, sir.
All right. Now, I'd like to turn your attention towards Ganister Flint's maturity. You know that Ganister was on the honor roll, right?
Yes, sir.
You know that Ganister Flint was a Boy Scout, right?
No, sir, I don't know for sure.
You were told by your daughter Bianca that Ganister Flint was a Boy Scout, right?
Yes, sir, I was
Your Honor,
told.
is to hearsay under Rule 801.
Your Honor, this goes to the effect on the listener that he believes Ganister Flint was mature based on the information that he'd been provided.
Sustain the objection.
You even handed Ganister Flint an award once for most improved on the chess team, isn't that right?
Yes, sir.
And wouldn't you agree with me that Ganister Flint is a responsible and smart kid?
At school, at least.
No, Mr. Morrow, that's not my question. Wouldn't you agree with me that Ganister Flint is a responsible and smart kid?
And I am agreeing with you with the stipulation that it's at school.
In your fact statement, did you ever clarify that Ganister was only smart and responsible at school?
Yes, sir.
You said that in your fact statement?
Yes, sir.
And if I showed you your fact statement today in court, would you be able to find those words?
Yes, sir.
Your Honor, permission to approach the witness with their fact statement?
Granted.
Just to clarify, Mr. Morrow, at one point later in your fact statement, did you ever say anything about Ganister's behavior outside of school?
Yes, sir, I did mention his behavior.
So I'm asking you about this specific statement. After you said this statement, did you clarify that these words were only about Ganister Flint inside of school?
Actually, I made the clarification before I said those words.
All right, thank you, Ms. Morrow. Now, I'd like to move on and talk about the meeting that you had with Chert Hornfels. You did meet with Mr. Hornfels, right?
I would have liked to, but I never had the chance.
You never had a meeting with Mr. Hornfels about these pictures that you took of a hole in the fence?
His secretary stopped me in my tracks and sent me packing.
Mr. Morrow, did you ever go back to Mr. Hornfels' office?
I thought that at least the secretary might have gotten the message through.
Mr. Morrow, that's not my question. Did you ever go back to Mr. Hornfels' office?
No, sir.
Did you ever make an attempt to schedule another meeting with Mr. Hornfels?
No, sir.
Wouldn't you agree that pictures of a hole in the fence, that's a really big deal?
Yes, sir.
And yet you never went back to Mr. Hornfels' office to try and meet with him again?
No, sir.
All right, I'd also like to talk about your daughter, Bianca. Now, as you testified, she was at the quarry on June 11th.
Yes, sir.
You said that she was standing on the same rock ledge that Ganister was standing, right?
I might have spruced it up a little, but she was at the same quarry.
Mr. Morrow, you're here in court under oath, isn't that right?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Morrow, the jury needs to hear your true testimony. Did you spruce it up, or was Bianca on the same rock ledge as Ganister Flint?
Yes, sir, she was.
And Bianca was swimming in the same quarry as Ganister Flint?
I don't know.
It's your testimony today that you don't know what Bianca was doing?
I don't know what she was doing at the quarry. She is my daughter.
Mr. Morrow, that's not my question. On direct examination, you were very comfortable telling the jury that Bianca Morrow was in the same quarry, swimming in the same quarry as Ganister Flint. Isn't that right?
I never said swimming, no.
Are you changing your testimony here in court?
No, sir, I never said she was swimming at all.
Nevertheless, Mr. Morrow, was Bianca in the same quarry as Ganister on June 11th?
Yes, sir.
So she was a first-hand witness to the accident.
Yes, sir.
Is Bianca here in court to testify?
No, sir.
Objection, Your Honor, as to relevance.
Sustained.
Mr. Morrow, were you at the quarry on June 11th?
No, sir.
Did you see the accident?
No, sir, not firsthand.
Have you actually ever been inside the quarry?
No, sir.
Have you ever seen the rock ledge firsthand?
Yes, sir.
You've seen the rock ledge, but not from inside the quarry, isn't that right?
No, sir.
Thank you, Your Honor. We pass the witness.
Redirect.
Yes, Your Honor. Mr. Morrow, is it your responsibility to notify Texoma Development Corporation about the holes in their fence?
No, but I did it anyway.
Is it your responsibility to fix the holes in the fence?
No, sir.
Was it your responsibility to follow up with Ms. Hornfels after you were denied a meeting?
No, sir.
Your Honor, I pass the witness.
No recross, Your Honor.
Thank you. You may step down.
With that, Your Honor, the plaintiff rests.
With that, call your first witness.
Your Honor, the defense calls Chert Hornfels to stand.
Please come on down. Please remember you are still under oath and keep your voice up so everybody in the jury can hear you, okay?
Yes, sir.
You may proceed.
Your Honor, may I have a moment to put the mic on?
Absolutely.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Give me a second.
Your Honor, the defense is ready to proceed with the direct
You
examination.
may proceed now. Thank you. We can hear you.
Ms. Hornfels, it's nice to see you again. Would you please introduce yourself to the court?
Yes, ma'am. My name is Chert Hornfels, and I'm the owner of Texoma Development Corporation.
Can you tell the jury what Texoma Development Corporation is?
It is my development company. We purchase undeveloped tracts of land and we turn them into homes, businesses, all the kinds of things you can really build a community around.
Can you explain to us how TDC got its start?
Well, I was born and raised in Texoma. I've lived here all my life, and growing up in such a small town, I've been able to see firsthand how new jobs and businesses can really bring life into a community. I've always wanted to get jobs to people who really needed them, and that's how TDC began.
Ms. Hornfels, why are you here today?
I am here because a young man, Ganister Flint, unfortunately passed away on my property, the Jackson Quarry. Look, I may own the quarry and I may have developed the land around it, but first and foremost, I'm a member of this community.
Objection, Your Honor. The witness has launched into a narrative. She was answering why she was in trial, and now she's launched into a new topic.
Any response?
I'm happy to break this down, Your Honor.
Thank you very much. Please do. Sustain the objection.
Ms. Hornfels, can you tell us about your involvement with the community?
Well, yes, ma'am. Since I started my development company, I've gone out of my way to employ locals in the same community that I was raised in, which is why I must say that my heart is hurting right alongside with Mrs. Flint.
Ms. Hornfels, where did the incident take place?
In the Jackson Quarry, my property.
Can you tell us a little bit about this property?
Yes, ma'am. I purchased it in 2012, and when I did, I put up fences, signs, and I even hired a security guard to patrol the property.
What were your plans for this property?
Well, I detailed all of my intentions for the future of this property in a master plan.
Would you recognize this master plan if I were to show it to you?
Yes, ma'am, I sure would.
Your Honor, permission to approach with what was previously marked as Exhibit 1.
Granted.
Opposing counsel? Now, Ms. Hornfels, take a moment to look this over if you need, and when you're ready, can you tell us what I've just handed you?
Well, yes, ma'am, this looks like a copy of my master plan.
Is this a fair and accurate representation of your master plan?
It sure is.
Have any apparent changes been made?
No, ma'am, they have not.
Your Honor, I offer Exhibit 1 into evidence.
Any objection?
No objections, Your Honor. It's stipulated as admissible.
Will be admitted.
Ms. Hornfels, can you show this to the jury?
Yes, ma'am, I sure can.
And can you point out the Jackson Quarry?
Sure, the quarry is right here.
Does this area have a fence around it?
Well, yes, ma'am, it sure does. And this fence is represented on the master plan by this dotted line. It covers every single edge of the quarry.
When was this fence put up?
In 2014, after I began developing the surrounding areas around the quarry.
Now, what kind of fence is this?
It is an 8-foot tall chain link fence.
Now, Ms. Square, on your fences, or Ms. Hornfels, on your fences, did you have any signs?
Yes, ma'am, I sure did. No trespassing signs.
And how many of these did you put up?
Well, we started out with 14 and we later added 6 more for a total of 20.
And you mentioned adding 6 more signs. Can you tell us who put those up?
Yes, ma'am, my security guard, Miss Shiss Graywack.
Was your security guard representing TDC while improving your security measures?
She sure was.
Would you recognize one of these no trespassing signs if I were to show it to you?
Yes, ma'am, of course I would.
Your Honor, permission to approach with what has already been entered into evidence is Exhibit 5.
Granted.
Opposing counsel? Ms. Hornfels, do you recognize what I'm handing to you?
Yes, ma'am, I sure do.
Now, can you show this to the jury and read it aloud?
Yes, ma'am, it says no trespassing, hunting, or fishing, violators prosecuted under penalty of law, and right here at the bottom is the personal phone number of my security guard so the community could call and report any irregularities they found around the quarry if they found any.
Now, we realize this is just a representation of those signs. Can you tell us how big the real signs were?
Oh, yes, ma'am, they were much bigger in real life, of course, about 3 feet by 2 feet.
Now, Ms. Hornfels, why did you feel the need to put up an 8-foot fence and 20 no trespassing signs?
Well, I just wanted to be sure I was doing everything I could to take ordinary care of my property and make it very clear to the community that it was private and absolutely not to be trespassed upon.
Ms. Hornfels, did you hire any security?
Yes, ma'am, I did. Miss Shiss Graywack, a Texoma native just like myself.
Can you tell us how much experience the security guard has?
Well, she worked at this very quarry in her youth. She received a security certificate for work around this quarry, and I also had her take a refresher course just
Objection,
to be sure.
Your Honor. Much of this information was learned through hearsay from Shiss Graywack.
Your Honor, this is a employee of the company. She's familiar with her experience as to why that's why she hired her.
Response?
Donated. Sustain the objection.
Do you believe that your security guard was experienced to be the security guard of the property?
Well, yes, ma'am, of course I do. I would never have hired her otherwise.
Was she previously an employee of TDC?
Yes, ma'am, she was. She worked for us as a home inspector.
So, was there any trespassing taking place before Ganister Flint?
Yes, ma'am. Unfortunately, we had some incidents with seniors trespassing in the summer and things like that.
Now, did you instruct your security guard to report back to you about the security of the fence?
Yes, I did. I asked her to record any irregularities she found in a logbook.
Now, why did you ask her to start this logbook?
Well, we just wanted to be sure we were taking every precaution to have a detailed record of any damage done to our fence or any trespassers found on our property, and we wanted to be able to accurately inform our professional repair team who would come out and replace broken segments of the fence.
Now, after all of these security measures had taken place, did the trespassing stop entirely?
No, ma'am, unfortunately not. We continue to have some incidents with illegal trespassing and destruction of our private property.
Now, how were you made aware that the trespassing wasn't stopping?
Well, we were finding holes cut in the fence, signs torn down, and that kind of thing.
Now, what would you do when your company found these holes in the fence?
Well, Miss Graywack would immediately temporarily mend the hole with a wire that was the same gauge as the chain link on the fence, and afterwards she would go ahead and place a work order with a professional repair team who would come out and replace the entire broken segment of the fence.
Now, Ms. Hornfels, was patching the holes in the fence a long-term solution?
Well, no, ma'am. I mean, it was a temporary fix, but we needed something to hold the fence over. We were not just going to leave holes out there.
Now, Ms. Hornfels, do you believe that you took ordinary care of your property?
Yes,
Objection,
ma'am.
Your Honor, is to improper opinion. Pursuant to Rule 701, this is not helpful to the jury pursuant to Rule 701B, as she is directly telling them what to find for Item 3, Question 2 of the charge to the jury, and therefore, this is not helpful to the jury in any way.
Response.
Your Honor, first I'd like to cite Rule 704. The opinion on the ultimate issue is not automatically objectionable, with the exception being in a criminal case. Secondly, Mrs. Hornfels is here testifying that they believe that they adequately secured their corporation or their quarry, and she's testifying about those security measures. That's why we're here today.
Overrule the objection is appropriate for cross-examination.
Mrs. Hornfels, do you believe that you took ordinary care of your property?
Yes, ma'am. I did everything within the bounds of reason to care for my property.
Do you believe that you maintained that ordinary care?
Yes, ma'am. I sure do.
Now, Ms. Hornfels, did you warn the community?
Well, yes, ma'am. I placed calls to the Homeowners Association to try and speak directly with the parents about our trespassing problem. I sent my security guard to a PTA meeting, and Ms. Graywack and myself both called the police, the highest authority on these trespassers, on multiple occasions.
Now, when your security guard was warning the community, was she representing Texoma Development Corporation at the time?
Yes, ma'am, she was.
Now, Ms. Hornfels, are you familiar with the history of the quarry?
I am, yes.
Are you familiar with the state of the quarry on June 11th?
Yes, ma'am.
Can you tell us if there's any differentiation between June 11th and the history of the quarry?
Yes, ma'am. One thing, the rope swing that those teenagers put up. Before that day, nobody had ever been hurt in my quarry, but on June 11th, Mr. Flint used that rope swing, and he lost his life.
Your Honor, I pass this witness and permission to publish Exhibit 1 to the jury.
Granted as far as publishing one.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Hold up. Cross-examination.
Yes, Your Honor. You purchased the Town Lake development on March 31st, 2012, is that correct?
That's right.
And this was a 500-acre property?
Yes, sir, it sure is.
500 acres is pretty large, right?
Yes, sir.
And you appointed one employee to secure this 500-acre property, right?
Yes, sir, I sure did.
Not only that, that employee was part-time, right?
Yes, sir, she sure was.
This part-time security guard was Miss Graywack.
Well, that's right.
And Miss Graywack was supposed to, in her part-time job, patrol the entire Town Lake development, right?
Well, yes, sir, but she focused mostly on the quarry.
Your Honor, may I retrieve Exhibit 1 from the jury?
You may.
So this is the Town Lake development, correct?
Yes, sir, that's right.
This is all 500 acres of it, right?
Sure is.
And this was everything Miss Graywack was supposed to patrol.
Yes, sir.
So in addition to this massive responsibility, she was also supposed to patrol the fence line of the quarry, correct?
Yes, sir, she sure
She was
did.
supposed to look for holes and damage.
Yes, sir.
She was supposed to temporarily repair those holes and damage.
Of course.
And she was supposed to keep children out of the quarry.
Yes, sir, she sure was.
And she was supposed to, when she found children, take them out of the quarry.
Oh, yes, sir.
And she was supposed to keep a logbook.
Well, that's right.
So you gave all of these responsibilities to a part-time employee.
Well, she focused mainly on the quarry. I mean, the rest of the neighborhood wasn't very dangerous. We'd have a much bigger problem if it were.
And you call that ordinary care, right?
Yes, sir, I sure do.
You think that having a part-time employee with that many responsibilities, ordinary care?
Yes, sir.
Ms. Hornfels, you also had no trespassing signs at the quarry, right?
I sure did, 20 of them.
Did those signs stop Mr. Flint?
Well, I suppose not, no, sir, unfortunately.
And can you hold up Exhibit 5 for the jury?
Yes, sir, I sure can.
That's no trespassing sign at your quarry?
Yes, sir.
And can you show the jury, please, where it says that you could get hurt from entering the quarry?
Well, it does not say that, sir.
Could you show where it has the word danger?
Well, it doesn't say that, sir.
What about the word caution at least?
It does not say that, sir.
Okay, what about the word warning?
No, sir.
So no warning whatsoever to anybody that's looking at that sign that they could get hurt from entering the quarry.
Well, aside from warning them not to trespass, you can't get hurt if you're not in the quarry.
And you call that sign ordinary care.
I sure do, yes, sir.
The last measure that you had was a broken fence, right?
A fence, not a broken one, sir. No, sir.
On June 11, 2016, it was broken though, wasn't it?
Well, in one place, sir.
At least one place, right?
That we know of, sir.
Right, there was a large hole covered up by a no trespassing sign, right?
Yes, sir, that those trespassers had deliberately concealed from my company.
So you call a part-time security guard, some signs that don't warn anybody of anything, and a broken fence,
Objection
ordinary
on our
care.
compound question.
Overruled.
You call a sign that doesn't warn anybody of anything, a part-time security guard with a massive amount of responsibilities, and a broken fence, ordinary care?
Well, sir, let's break that down. My sign does warn people not to trespass. My security guard had perfectly adequate capabilities to take care of all of her responsibilities, and of course we would fix the fence after finding any damage to it.
Now, Ms. Hornfels, were you present for Miss Caldwell's opening statement?
Yes, sir, I was.
Were you here whenever she blamed Ganister's death on his choices?
Yes, sir, I was.
Let's talk about some choices that you made. You chose to put up that sign, didn't you?
Yes, sir, I sure did.
You chose to put Schist Graywack as a part-time security guard.
That's right.
You chose to leave an ineffective fence in place, didn't you?
I would not call it ineffective. It kept out lots of trespassers.
Did it keep Ganister Flint out?
Unfortunately, it did not, sir, but I'm not responsible for that.
So were those your choices or Ganister Flint's choices?
Well, those were my choices, Mr. Hoffman.
You chose to leave the quarry in this condition.
In excellent condition. Thank you for asking.
Did anything stop you from spending more money on security?
No, sir, but I believed at the time what I had was perfectly adequate.
Your Honor, may I? Never mind. So let's look at the estates of Town Lake. You recognize this document. You're very familiar with it, right?
Yes, sir, I sure am.
So you know about the estates of Town Lake, right?
Yes, sir.
And some of these lots had been sold before Ganister Flint passed away, right?
Yes, sir, just a few, but we hadn't really finished development yet.
Each of these lots was worth at least $125,000, right?
Yes, sir, that's right.
And in the South Park lots, you had sold at least a quarter of these by the time Ganister Flint died, right?
Objection, Your Honor. Relevance as to what the sales of her lots are have to do with any of the reasons we're here today.
Your Honor, may I respond?
You may.
One of the counts in today's case is item 3 of question 2, whether or not this witness, the defendant, exercised ordinary care in keeping the children out of the property. Ordinary care is defined as how somebody in her position would have acted. And I'm going to be exploring the fact that somebody in her position with this massive amount of resources would have spent more than only $15,000 on security.
Sustain the objection.
May that question be stricken from the record?
The question is triggered.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Did anything stop you from spending more than $15,000 on security?
Well, I suppose not, but at the time it was what I felt was appropriate.
And did you spend more than $15,000 on security?
Over time, sir, yes.
Your Honor, I pass the witness.
Hold up, Counselor. Since you took it from the jury, you may want to give the exhibit back to the jury.
Yes, Your Honor.
Now, cross-examination.
Redirect, Your Honor.
Redirect, I apologize. Redirect.
Can you tell us why you put up 20 no trespassing signs?
Well, yes, ma'am. I wanted to warn the community not to trespass on my private property.
Can you tell us why you put up an 8-foot fence?
Yes, ma'am. Again, I just want to make sure nobody was getting onto my property. I wanted to take good care of it.
Now, if you found anything wrong with the fence, what would your company do?
Well, we would immediately fix it. I mean, I wanted to do my best and make my community proud.
Did you warn the community of the quarry?
Yes, ma'am. I called the Homeowners Association. Miss Graywack and I called the police on these trespassers on multiple occasions, and I sent Miss Graywack to a PTA meeting just to speak to the community.
Now, why would spending more, as opposing counsel mentioned, not be effective in increasing your security measures?
Well, ma'am, we were doing everything we thought was appropriate at the time. We were doing our best for this community.
Thank you, Your Honor. We pass this witness.
Anything further?
Yes, Your Honor. Recross?
Yes.
So on redirect examination, you said that spending more would not have helped anything. Is that your testimony?
No, sir. I just said I was trying to do what was appropriate at the time.
You didn't say when Miss Caldwell asked whether or not spending more would have been effective, you didn't agree that it would not be effective?
Well, what I said, sir, was that at the time I did what I thought was appropriate. That's all I said.
So you didn't think it was appropriate to make Shish Graywak full-time?
Well, no, sir. I think she was doing a great job with her cursory checks that she was completing as a part-time employee.
Do you think that if Miss Graywak had been at the quarry on June 11, 2016, that Ganister Flint would have died?
Well, I don't know, sir.
So if Miss Graywak had been at the quarry, would he have been more likely to die?
Well, I don't know, sir.
Pass the witness.
Thank you.
May my witness step down, Your Honor?
You may sit down.
Your Honor, the defense calls Shish Graywak to the stand.
Coming down, please. Please remember you're still under oath. Make sure you keep your voice up so everybody can hear you.
Ms. Graywak, it's nice to see you again. I'd like to ask you to introduce yourself to the court.
Yes, sir. My name is Shish Graywak, and I work for Texoma Development Corporation.
And can you tell us about your experience?
Yes, sir. I worked at the quarry about 25 years ago after I got out of high school, and I worked at TDC as an inspector and a forklift operator, and then as head of security. Sorry.
And what do you do as head of security?
As head of security, I would make patrols around the property, ensuring there were no trespassers, holes in the fence, and trash on the premises.
Can you walk us through your routine around 2016?
Yes, sir. Usually I would go around the mornings and I would check for trespassers. And 2 to 3 times a week I would actually walk the entire perimeter of the fence line. But I would drive by the property several times a day.
Can you tell us about some instances, specific dates that you found people currently trespassing in the property?
Yes, sir. On May 1st of 2016, I found trespassers and escorted them off the property and told them that they were not allowed to be there. On June 5th of 2016, I also found trespassers and called the police just to get the message out there that they were not allowed to trespass.
Were you present in the courtroom for Arcos Marl's direct examination?
Yes, sir, I was.
Did you see him show the court 2 pictures of what he claimed to be a hole in the fence?
Yes, sir, but I didn't get to see them in detail.
Would you recognize them if I showed them to you now?
Sure.
Your Honor, permission to approach?
Granted.
Ms. Graywak, take a minute to look over these photos. Let me know if you recognize them.
Yes, sir, these are pictures of the fence around the quarry.
And have you seen those pictures before the legal proceedings we're here for today?
Yes, but I didn't get to see them in detail.
Your Honor, may our witness step down into the well to show these exhibits to the jury?
May.
Ms. Graywak, please step down here. Can you please show the jury what's depicted in Exhibit 2B?
Yes, sir, this is a picture of the hole that was in the fence around the quarry. Every time I found a hole, I would use a coat hanger wire that was the same thickness as the chain link itself. I would wrap it around the right side of the hole and the left side of the hole, as you can see in this picture. But in this picture, it is not connected in the middle.
What's currently holding the fence together?
Currently, there's a zip tie and a piece of string, but that was not my fix.
Would the zip tie...
Just a second. Can you see, so since she's pointing at the exhibit, can you see so that you're okay?
Yes,
I just
Your
want to
Honor.
make sure. Thank you. You may continue.
Would the zip tie and the piece of string that you just mentioned adequately secure the fence?
No, sir. This wire that was the same thickness as the chain link itself would secure this hole, but this zip tie and piece of string that I did not put there would not secure this hole properly.
Can you switch to Exhibit 2A, the zoomed out picture? From a distance, does the hole still appear that it's been fixed?
Yes, sir. If you look from the distance, you can see that the hole looks to be fixed. But as you get closer, you can tell that it's just being held together with a zip tie and piece of string, which wouldn't have kept me out.
Thank you, Ms. Graywak. Please return to your seat. Were there any signs on the fence surrounding the quarry?
Yes, sir. We had 20 no trespassing signs that clearly indicated that people were not allowed to be on this property.
Now I'm going to ask you a question, and I'd only like you to answer if you know the answer for a fact. Did the kids who trespassed on the quarry on June 11th, did they see these signs?
Yes, sir, and I know this for a fact because on June 11th, the kids showed me the hole they had gone through on that very day. They showed me a hole that they had concealed with a no trespassing sign. I was appalled. They trespassed, and in order to cover their actions, they covered it with a sign telling them they were not allowed to do so.
Thank you, Ms. Graywak. I'd like to turn your attention towards the incident that happened on June 11th. Can you tell us what you know?
Yes, sir. Around 5:15 p.m., I was driving around the quarry. I noticed a lot was going on there. I approached and got closer, and the police told me a young man had trespassed onto the property, used a rope swing, swung into the water, and passed away.
What precautions did Texoma Development Corporation take to prevent this from happening?
Well, for starters, soon after Hornfels bought the property, she put up an 8-foot tall chain link fence, hired me as security guard, and we put up 20 signs clearly indicating that they were not allowed to trespass.
Did the kids persist?
Yes, sir, we kept finding holes, and one time I even found a rope on the property. I mean, this quarry was not a water park. I immediately took that rope down.
Can you tell us if there was a rope present at the quarry on June 11th?
Yes, sir, there was.
And were you here for Tuff Scoria's examination?
Yes, sir.
Did you hear Tuff Scoria testify that Ganister Flint died moments after using the rope?
Yes, sir, and if I had seen that rope swing, I would have immediately took it down.
Why didn't you take it down on June 11th?
I wasn't there for those 30 minutes that they were there.
Thank you, Ms. Graywack. Now, do you believe that you did your job and exercised proper care as the security guard of the company?
Objection, Your Honor, as to improper opinion.
Response?
Your Honor, she's the security guard of Texoma Development Corporation. She can testify if she believes she could have taken additional precautions to secure the quarry or if she thinks that what she was doing was enough.
Overrule the objection.
Ms. Graywack, do you think you did enough to secure the quarry?
Yes, sir. Every time I found a hole, I fixed it until the fence repair team could come out. Every time I found trespassers, I escorted them off and told them they were not allowed to be there. I did everything I could to prevent this from happening.
Thank you, Your Honor. We pass the witness.
Cross.
Yes, Your Honor. Now, as a security guard, it's your responsibility to keep Texoma Development Corporation's properties secure, isn't it?
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
But you didn't even walk the fence line every day, did you?
No, ma'am, but I did drive by the property several times a day.
You walked the fence line 2 to 3 times a week.
Yes, ma'am.
You knew that children in the neighborhood like to explore the quarry, didn't you?
Yes, ma'am, I did.
You knew children liked to swim in the quarry when the weather was warm.
Yes, ma'am. That's why I increased my checks during the summer.
Well, you knew that children liked to go to the quarry as early as 2015, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
In fact, when you did patrol the fence line, you had followed the paths that the kids had made to the holes in the fence.
Yes, ma'am, looking for trash and to see if there were any on the property.
You also knew that there could be hidden rocks in Jackson Quarry as early as 2015.
Yes,
that correct?
ma'am.
And to clarify, Ganister Flint died because he hit his head on hidden rocks in Jackson Quarry.
Yes, ma'am, but I did not know about this rock ledge.
You just stated that you knew there could be hidden rocks in Jackson Quarry, though. Is that correct?
Of course, it's a quarry that filled up with rainwater, but I did not know of the exact rock ledges that were underneath the water.
Now, you're here for Tuff Scoria's examination, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
So, you heard that the hole that the kids had got through on June 11, 2016 was there for 2 weeks before Ganister Flint died. Is that
Yes,
correct?
ma'am, and I didn't find it because they covered it with a no trespassing sign. I was appalled.
You didn't find it, but it's your job to keep Jackson Quarry secure, isn't it?
Yes, ma'am, but these teenagers hid this hole so I could not find it.
But it's your responsibility to make sure that any holes in the fence are repaired.
Right.
So you also kept a log of the checks you made at Jackson Quarry, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am. Any irregularities I found on the property, but it was pretty sporadic. I didn't write it down every single time.
Your Honor, may I approach opposing counsel and then the witness with what has been previously marked as Exhibit 6 for identification purposes?
You may.
Let the record reflect I'm tendering the document to opposing counsel.
Record will so reflect.
Do you recognize this document?
Yes, ma'am, it is my logbook.
So, Chert Hornfels asked you to keep this logbook in your capacity as a security guard, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And has it been altered or changed in any way?
Doesn't look like it.
Your Honor, at this time, I move to enter Exhibit 6 into evidence.
Any objection?
Yes, Your Honor, to hearsay.
Response, Your Honor?
Yes.
Under Rule 801D2D, this is a statement made by an employee of a party opponent acting within the scope of that employee relationship.
Any response to that?
Yes, I'd like to expand my objection now to hearsay within hearsay. May we be heard constructively out of the earshot of the jury?
Constructively, they're outside. Now we're talking. Go.
There's an entry on April 11th that clearly details a conversation between Arcos Marl and Shis Graywack, and Arcos Marl is not an employee of Texoma Development Corporation.
Any response to that?
Your Honor, may I approach the witness
You
to
may.
retrieve the exhibit? Your Honor, the statement in question is that Arcos Marl didn't believe that this witness was doing enough to protect the quarry, which that witness already stated on their examination, so it's already in evidence.
Overrule your objection. Jury's back. Go ahead.
Yes, Your Honor. So that's the log that you put your entries in about Jackson Quarry, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
So there are 16 entries in that log.
Yes, ma'am.
The first entry is from April 2nd, 2016. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
The final entry is from June 11th, 2016.
That's correct.
So that's a span of 70 days.
Yes.
So you claim to have walked the fence line 2 to 3 times a week.
Yes, ma'am.
You claim to have gone to the quarry most mornings.
Right.
But there are only 16 entries in that log, or a space of 10 weeks.
Correct. I only wrote when I found any irregularities at the property. I say this as accomplishment. 70 days and only 16 entries.
So you wrote down every time you saw a hole in the fence?
Yes, ma'am.
So let's talk about some of those specific entries. On May 1st, 2016, you saw a group of high schoolers at Jackson Quarry. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
You saw 6 of those high schoolers swimming in the quarry.
Yes, ma'am.
And afterwards, you advised Chert Hornfels to call the school principals.
Yes, ma'am.
And on that day, May 1st, those kids had a rope swing with them, didn't they?
On May 1st?
On May 1st, the kids had a rope swing with them, didn't they?
No, ma'am.
Would you like me to refresh your memory?
It's not in this logbook.
Would you like me to refresh your memory with your fact statement?
Ma'am, the rope swing was not on May 1st of 2016.
Would you like me to refresh your memory with your fact statement?
No, I do not believe it needs to be refreshed.
Your Honor, may I approach the witness for purpose of impeachment?
You may.
Let the record reflect I'm tendering the document to opposing counsel.
Record so reflect.
What lines will you be referring to?
Your Honor, I'll be reading from page 2, line 12.
Hold up. Opposing counsel, find it.
Your Honor, I would object to improper impeachment. May we be heard constructively out of the earshot of the jury.
Jury's outside the presence. Go ahead.
So page 2, line 12 says, last summer in 2016, I caught some kids again doing the same thing. They even had a rope with them the most recent time. Our witness was testifying that the entry she made on May 1st wasn't the time that she found the logbook. The inconsistent statement, as opposing counsel has said, is last summer in 2016. This isn't an inconsistent statement. This is just saying that some other time during the summer of 2016, other than the date of May 1st, she found the kids in the quarry.
Response.
Your Honor, the witness states later in the fact statement that in the following line that afterwards she suggested to Chert Hornfels that they call the school principals. In her security log on May 1st, she suggested they call the school principals. So the rope swing was on the same day as the date entry in the log.
Overrule your objection. Let the record reflect the jury is back in the jury box. You may proceed.
May I approach the witness?
You may.
Is this your fact statement?
Yes, ma'am.
And then this is your signature?
Yes, ma'am.
You were able to provide an addendum at this morning before trial, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And this is the signature on your addendum?
Yes, ma'am.
So you were told to provide any and all relevant information, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
So please read along silently with me as I read aloud, starting on page 2, line 11. Last summer in 2016, I caught some kids again doing the same thing. They even had a rope with them that most recent time. After that, I suggested to Hornfels that we maybe should call the school principals to ask them to tell the kids to stay away. Did I read that correctly?
Yes, ma'am.
So,
You forgot the addendum.
the day that you told Chert Hornfels that you should call the school principals, the kids had a rope swing with them at the quarry, didn't they?
You must be confused, ma'am. I mean, Tuff Scoria testified that only 2 weeks before the incident they had brought a rope, and 2 weeks before June 11th is not May 1st.
Well, we'll talk about that in a second, but there was a rope on May 1st?
No, ma'am.
Okay. On May 27th, 2016, you walked the fence line twice, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
You saw no damage to the fence line.
Correct.
You saw no trash inside the quarry.
I did not.
And then on June 3rd, 2016, you saw a rope inside the quarry, didn't you?
Yes, ma'am. That was that rope I was talking about. It was on June 3rd.
June 3rd, is that 2 weeks before June 11th?
No, ma'am. She put the rope swing up 2 weeks before, and I found it on June 3rd.
So you didn't go back to the quarry until June 3rd, which is more than 2 weeks. So you believe that the rope was there 2 weeks before Ganister Flint died?
That's what Tuff Scoria testified.
But you didn't find it until June 3rd?
Correct, ma'am.
Then on June 5th, 2016, you saw 4 kids inside the quarry, didn't you?
Yes, ma'am.
Nowhere between May 27th, 2016 and June 5th, 2016 did you write about any damage to the fence line inside your log, did you?
No, ma'am, I did not.
And you stated that every time you saw a hole in the fence, you wrote it in your log, didn't you?
Yes, ma'am.
And there was evidence of kids still getting into the quarry, wasn't there?
Yes, ma'am.
Pass the witness, Your Honor. May I publish Exhibit 6 to the jury?
You may.
Brief redirect, Your Honor.
You may proceed.
What's the criteria for making an entry into the logbook?
I would write in the logbook whenever I found trespassers on the property or any irregularities. I did not, however, write every single time I found a hole.
So is having a long gap between entries a good thing or a bad thing?
A very good thing. That meant that we didn't find any trespassers, holes, or trash on the premises.
We pass the witness.
Recross, Your Honor?
Yes.
Now, on cross-examination, you just stated that you wrote in the log every time you saw a hole in the fence, didn't you?
Anytime I found irregularities, but I did state that not every single time I found a hole, I wrote it down.
You stated on cross-examination that even when you found a hole in the fence, you may not have written it down?
Yes, ma'am.
So you thought a hole in the fence wasn't an irregularity?
No, we found holes many times.
So it was regular to have holes in your fence?
Yes, ma'am, and every time I found them, I would repair them.
Pass the witness, Your Honor.
May our witness step down?
You may sit down. Next.
Your Honor, the defense calls Shale Gabbro to the stand.
Come on down, please.
May I have the mic? Your Honor, the defense calls Shale Gabbro to the stand.
Please remember you're still under oath. Keep your voice up so everybody on the jury can hear you, okay?
Okay.
You may proceed.
Mr. Gabbro, nice to see you again. Of course, I have some questions for you. First of all, could you introduce yourself to the jury?
Hi, my name's Shale Gabbro. I'm 15 and 7/10 years old, and I go to John Wayne Memorial High.
Where do you live?
I live in a condo off 133rd Street with my parents and two annoying sisters.
Why are you here today?
Oh, I'm here because of something that never should have happened. I'm here because my best friend, Ganny, died after swinging off a rope swing into the Jackson Quarry.
How did you know Ganister?
Well, after he and his mom moved to Minnesota, no one really interacted with him when he started going to our school, so I befriended him and we started hanging out after school and on weekends.
Could you tell us a little bit about your friendship with Ganister?
Oh boy, you could say me and Ganister were like protons and neutrons, so close together you'd always slightly pushing apart. Well, in reality, it'd be the strong force keeping them together with the electromagnetic force that'd be pushing.
Mr. Gabbro,
sorry.
Could you tell us about the day that Ganister died, June 11th?
Oh yeah, Ganister, after my advanced physics class, invited me to go hang out and do something.
Where'd you go?
We went over to the Jackson Quarry.
Had you ever been inside the Jackson Quarry before this date?
No, of course not.
And why?
I mean, first of all, there was a giant fence around the entire thing. And then there were these no trespassing signs around the entire perimeter. And I've had nightmares about those signs.
What did you see when you got to the quarry?
Well, there was a hole that was cut into the fence.
Did Ganister see the hole?
Yeah, he did. And that was the hole that some older boys had told him about.
Did you want to go inside the fence?
No, there was actually a no trespassing sign right next to it.
Did Ganister see the sign?
Yeah, he did, and he said that they didn't arrest kids.
Did you end up going into the fenced area?
Yeah, we did.
And when you got inside the fenced area, did you see anyone else?
Yeah, there were some older boys from our school. Us A students call them the nerds for the not even remotely dorky. And plus, I recognized a few from my math class. I actually tutored one of the guys.
Did you see did the older kids see you?
Yeah, they did. They beckoned us over to the edge of the quarry.
Did you want to jump into the quarry?
No, of course not. I didn't even have like my swimsuit on, and my mom hates when I get my clothes dirty.
Could you describe for the jury what the area around the rope swing looks like?
Sure. There was a rope that was suspended with a tree about 20 or 30 feet above this dark, murky water. Actually, it was about as dark as my little sister's soul when I beat her in Mario
Your Honor,
Kart.
the witness has launched into a narrative.
Sustained.
I agree.
Move to strike that, huh?
It will be struck.
All right, Mr. Gabbro, could we get back to talking about June 11th?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Did Ganister use the rope swing?
Yeah, he did.
And could you tell us what happened next?
Well, he ran over to the edge of the quarry, and he jumped and grabbed the rope. He started swinging back towards the edge. And he landed really close to the edge of the quarry, head first in the water.
Were you concerned about Ganister when you saw how he landed?
I mean, not at first, but after several seconds, I realized something was seriously wrong.
Mr. Gabbro, if you could, tell us what happened next.
I told one of the older boys to jump in and save him, and I dialed 911 on my phone.
Did you warn Ganister before he jumped into the water?
Of course, I grabbed his arm and told him, dude, don't be stupid. We should turn around.
So, Mr. Gabbro, even though you grabbed his arm and told him that you should go, did Ganister jump in anyways?
Yes, he did, unfortunately.
Now, I want to go back and talk about a couple instances before June 11th where you might have warned Ganister. Could you tell us about one of these times?
Sure. There's this one time after school, some nerds were playing murder ball outside, which is basically dodgeball with a softball. And I told Ganister that he shouldn't join because he was obviously going to get hurt. And I told him it was moving way too quick. And sure enough, he got hit right off the bat after joining.
Mr. Gabbro, so even though you warned Ganister not to join in, did Ganister join in anyways?
Yes, he did.
Now let's go back to June 11th. What happened in the moment immediately after you grabbed Ganister's arm and warned him not to jump?
He immediately ran over to the edge and grabbed the rope swing.
Thank you, Mr. Gabbro. Your Honor, we pass the witness.
Cross.
Yes, Your Honor, may I proceed?
You may.
So, Mr. Gabbro, let's clarify you and Ganister Flint's relationship. You knew Ganister Flint because you went to the same middle school, right?
Yeah, before that, I only had my pet puggle, which is mixed between a...
Counselor, can you move one way or the other? So there you go. Okay, thank you.
Ganister Flint was younger than you, right?
Yes, he was.
He was 12 years old.
Yes, he was.
Now, you talked a lot on direct examination about how you warned him, but on the skateboard tricks, you told Ganister to, quote, don't be stupid, right?
Yeah.
And same thing with the murder ball. You told him to, quote, don't be stupid as well.
Well, yeah, I mean, it was obvious he was going to get hurt, and I told him it was moving way too quick.
But with the skateboard tricks, Mr. Gabbro, Ganister Flint didn't see anyone get hurt, did he?
Well, yeah, but he was younger than all the guys. Of course he was going to get hurt.
That's right. Because he was younger, Ganister Flint was going to get hurt.
Yes.
And he did get hurt with the skateboard tricks, right?
He did.
And he did get hurt with the murder ball, right?
He did.
And as far as you know, Mr. Gabbro, as long as Ganister Flint got hurt, he didn't do it again, did he?
I'm not sure.
You didn't see Ganister Flint play murder ball again.
I didn't.
And you didn't see Ganister Flint attempt to do that same skateboard trick ever again, did you?
Well, he did work on it a little more after a while, and he actually did get it.
So, Mr. Gabbro, let's talk about June 11, 2016. Ganister Flint really wanted to go in, didn't he? He wanted to go to Jackson Quarry.
Yeah, he did.
You guys rode your bikes down to Jackson Quarry.
Yeah.
And when you arrive, you see the fence, right?
Yes.
And like you testified on direct examination, you say that there was a hole in this fence, didn't you?
Yes, there was.
In fact, this hole was easy to get through.
Yeah, it was.
In addition, you talked about some signs, right?
Yes.
Your Honor, permission to retrieve Exhibit 5 from the jury or from the witness stand?
Granted.
Mr. Gabbro, these were the signs you saw on June 11, 2016, right?
Yes, they are.
Now, does this sign say dangerous anywhere?
No, it doesn't need to say dangerous.
Does this sign say that you could hurt yourself?
There's no reason for it to say that.
But this sign does say that violators will be prosecuted under penalty of law, right?
Yes.
And as far as you know, no one was ever prosecuted under penalty of law, were they?
I don't know. The older boys didn't really keep in touch with me, so I'm not sure.
As far as you know, Mr. Gabbro, let's keep this to your knowledge. No one was prosecuted under penalty of law.
Not that I know.
In fact, Ganister Flint told you that they don't arrest kids, right? Like you testified?
That's what he believed, yes.
So, in addition to these, you didn't see a security guard on June 11, 2016, did you?
No, I did not.
In fact, no one stopped you from getting in on June 11, 2016.
There was nothing but the fence and the signs.
So after you went through that big hole in the fence, eventually you guys reached the edge of the quarry, right?
Yes.
And after seeing kids swim, Ganister Flint said that he was ready to go in.
Yes.
And just like all the other times, you told Ganister Flint to, quote, don't be stupid, right?
Yes.
But you didn't tell him don't do this because you could hurt yourself, did you?
It was obvious. I mean,
Redirecting you back to my question, Mr. Gabbro, you didn't tell him don't do this because you could hurt yourself.
no,
You didn't tell him don't do this because there's rock ledges in the water.
I had no idea, and there's no reason.
That's right, Mr. Gabbro. There was no clue in your mind that there was rock ledges in Jackson Quarry's water, was there?
No, I don't know. I don't know if anyone know.
Because you weren't warned about them.
No.
No one from Texoma Development Corporation told you about rock ledges in the water.
No.
In fact, no one from Texoma Development Corporation made it clear that there was danger in Jackson Quarry.
No. There was no trespassing signs on the entire thing.
And Ganister Flint died by hitting his head on rock ledges that you weren't aware about.
Yes.
I pass the witness, Your Honor.
Redirect.
Brief redirect, Your Honor. Mr. Gabbro, why weren't you able to warn Ganister of the specific dangers on June 11th?
The boys were just constantly daring him. They're yelling, calling him things, and he wanted to do it.
Thank you, Your Honor. We pass the witness.
No recross, Your Honor.
Sit down. Any further witnesses?
Your Honor, at this time,
The
defense rests.
Thank you. Both sides close, I take it. Do you need a minute before closing arguments?
No, Your Honor, only to put in the mic.
Okay. Do you need a minute before?
No, Your
Just while they're doing it, you'll take your minute, right? I understand. You may proceed.
May it please the court. They knew and didn't stop it. They knew kids were ignoring their signs, evading their security guard, and breaking through their fence, and yet they just kept these same ineffective security measures. We as the plaintiff had to prove 4 facts to you by preponderance of the evidence. And these 4 facts can be found in questions 2 and 3 of the charge to the jury. Now, the first thing that we had to prove was that the defendant's quarry posed an unreasonable risk of injury. This is the first part of question 2. Now, Jackson Quarry is an unsupervised 6-acre rock quarry that is filled with deep, dark water and is surrounded by a neighborhood that the defendant created. Let that sink in. No children had died at this quarry until the defendant tried to make a profit off of it. Now, the second thing that we had to prove was that the defendant knew or reasonably should have known of the risk of injury. And this really isn't in dispute, ladies and gentlemen. Shish Graywag came on the stand and told you she specifically warned children, not Gandis or Flint, but children, that there could be hidden rocks in the quarry. So clearly, Texoma Development Corporation knew children could get hurt on the property. Now, the third thing we had to prove negligence was that Texoma Development Corporation failed to exercise ordinary care by either failing to make the quarry reasonably safe or failing to adequately warn the decedent of the dangers. Now, the evidence really isn't in dispute here either. The evidence has shown that Shish Graywag and Chert Hornfels knew children were getting onto the property and they didn't stop it. Ms. Hornfels admitted that her warning was not effective, and Shish Graywag admitted on cross-examination that it was a regular occurrence for there to be holes in the fence. The hole that Ganister Flint entered through had been there for 2 full weeks, avoiding detection by their part-time security guard. And yet, the defendant still had the audacity to call that ordinary care. Now, even if the defendant couldn't have stopped the children from getting in, the law gives them the alternate responsibility to adequately warn the deceased of the dangers of the quarry. But they didn't. They put up this sign. This sign that the defendant admitted does not warn children of dangers in the quarry. There is no way any child could have known they could get hurt, and that represents the defendant's failure to exercise ordinary care. You must answer question 2, yes. Now, the fourth thing that we had to prove was that the defendant's negligence was a proximate cause in Ganister Flint's death. And that simply means that the defendant's negligence directly led to Ganister Flint's death in a foreseeable way. Now, most tragedies are the result of a chain of mistakes made by several people. But the judge has told you right here in question 3 that there may be more than one proximate cause of an event. So even if there are other links in this chain, it does not excuse the one that was made by the defendant. You must answer question 3, yes. Ms. Caldwell came before you at the beginning of this trial and tried to blame a 12-year-old child for his choices, tried to blame him for his own death, and that simply isn't true. It was the defendant's choices that allowed the quarry to remain in this state for an extended period of time. It was her choices that allowed the children to trespass at will. It was her choices that compel you to hold the defendant accountable for their actions. We ask that you find them liable. Thank you.
Thank you. You may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. May it please the court, opposing counsel, members of the jury. Wouldn't it be easier to blame TDC? A big bad corporation, all about the money, didn't care about the little guy. Safety wasn't a priority, but that's not the truth. That's the plaintiff's story. Today you've heard that Texoma Development Corporation was a family business. They went out of their way to employ locals in the very communities they're helping build. Members of the jury, sometimes the truth is uncomfortable. Sometimes it's not what we want to hear. But the truth has shown that the events on June 11th were a tragedy, but it came down to choices Ganister made and to warnings Ganister ignored. Now the plaintiff, they have the burden of proof. This means it's their responsibility to show you that a majority of the evidence points to TDC's liability. This is a burden they haven't met. In a few minutes, you'll be handed a piece of paper. On it, there will be 3 questions. First, was Ganister Flint, because of his age and maturity, capable of recognizing the dangers in the quarry? Now today we've shown you that Ganister Flint had a history. He had a history of seeing a dangerous skateboarding stunt or a dangerous game in his school, and he'd want to do it. And his best friend, Shale Gabbro, he'd warn him, he'd say, Ganister, don't do it, don't be stupid. And Ganister would ignore the warning. He'd do that dangerous thing anyway. And nothing is different between this history of reckless behavior and June 11th, when Ganister Flint saw a rope swing. He saw something dangerous as he looked down off a 25-foot rock ledge into dark and murky waters, and he made a choice. He ignored Shale Gabbro's warning, and he swung out over the quarry. Second, you'll be asked if you believe Texoma Development Corporation is negligent if they failed to exercise ordinary care. Now, TDC had a legal responsibility to do one of 2 things: to either warn the community or secure the quarry. And we did both of those things. The fact is, every single person who entered the quarry on June 11th, Miss Scoria, her friends, Shale Gabbro, even Ganister Flint, they saw this no trespassing sign. They saw it, they read it, and they chose to ignore it. They chose to enter the quarry anyway. Texoma Development Corporation also relied on an 8-foot tall chain link fence to keep kids out. And who cut those holes in the fence? Miss Scoria, her friends, other teenagers in the neighborhood. And TDC, every time, consistently, would take effort to fix those holes, mend them temporarily for a professional company to come and replace an entire segment of the broken fence. You've also been told that Miss Graywack, as a part-time employee, wasn't able to accomplish her job, but today you've heard she drove by the quarry several times a day. She went in the quarry several times a week, and she caught kids trespassing in the quarry on numerous occasions. She removed them from the premises and effectively did her job. Finally, you'll be asked if you believe Texoma Development Corporation was the proximate, or as the law defines it, the unbroken cause of Ganister Flint's death. Let me walk you through the events of June 11th. Shale Gabbro and Ganister Flint chose to go down to the quarry. Why that day? Why June 11th? The fence had kept them out for a year. But on that day, they heard that other kids had cut a hole in the fence. They heard that Miss Scoria and her friends had cut a hole that they could get through. So they went to the quarry. They chose to enter. And that's when Ganister Flint saw that 25-foot rock ledge. He saw that rope swing. But he wasn't wearing swim shorts. He didn't plan to jump until Mr. Scoria and his friends, they dared Ganister Flint to jump. They called him a chicken, and only then did he use their rope swing. Let's talk about that rope swing. Mr. Scoria told you today in court that that rope swing was a cause of Ganister Flint's death. Because you see, Ganister Flint grabbed that rope swing. He swung out over the quarry, but this isn't where he let go. He started swinging back, closer to the rock ledge than anybody before him. And because of that rope swing, Ganister Flint fell where nobody else had fallen before him. For 25 years, no one had ever been hurt in that quarry. But on June 11th, Ganister died. And this is clearly because of the rope swing that was not put up by TDC, but put up by Mr. Scoria and his friends. So when you're asked if you believe Texoma Development Corporation was the unbroken cause of Ganister Flint's death, remember who cut the hole, remember who dared Ganister Flint to jump, and remember who put up the rope swing. Members of the jury, it's your responsibility today to see through the story, to use the facts, the evidence, and the witness testimony to make your conclusion. Find Texoma Development Corporation not liable for choices Ganister made. Thank you.
Thank you. You have up to a minute rebuttal. I think it's actually about 58 seconds, but you may continue.
Your Honor, may I inquire as to exactly how much time I have remaining?
54. I apologize.
May it please the court. Opposing counsel came before us at the beginning of the day and told us that the plaintiff was changing the facts to fit the theory. But the real culprit of this was Mr. Webb. In question 2, item 3 of the charge to the jury, it says the defendant failed to exercise ordinary care to protect the deceased from the danger by either failing to adequately warn the deceased of the dangerous condition or failing to make that condition reasonably safe. It is the deceased that the defendant was supposed to warn, not the community. So even if if Schiss-Grauch was going to PTA meetings or calling the homeowners association, it does not matter because they did not warn Ganister Flint of the dangers. And it was their choices not to warn the children of the community that led to Ganister Flint's death. And it's their choices that compel you to hold the defendant liable. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, you've heard all the evidence, the argument of counsel. At this time, you'll retire to the jury room to deliberate. The court is in recess while the jury deliberates. I think we have everybody. Is everybody in from the hallway that wants to be here? By the way, I know that y'all applauded when they were over with, but let's give them one more hand. What we're going to do is first we're going to find out who the people are on the jury, and basically I wish that every jury could be as good as this one. They listen, none of them fell asleep, none of them were reading magazines. This is a fantastic jury. Let's go ahead. Start with you.
Galen G. I'm a Dallas family law attorney and love mock trial.
My name is Jim Young. I'm a lawyer, arbitrator, mediator, and part-time professor here. I'm the assistant coach for the University of Texas at Dallas undergraduate mock trial team. I've been involved in mock trial for a long time.
Tom Goranson, lawyer at Goranson Bain, and I just love doing mock trial.
Hi, my name is Stacy McNulty. I do patent litigation and I manage it for a company. So I kind of prep the witnesses and stuff, and I'm here because I just get very inspired. I love it. Great job.
I'm Nicole LaBeouf. I'm a 24-year trial lawyer. I defend attorneys, do business litigation, and I've been doing mock trial for a number of years now. And always go back and tell my young lawyers that you guys knock their socks off. I mean, if I could fire them and hire you, I would.
Hi, my name is Allison Rapond. I do plaintiff's products liability and then personal injury law here in Dallas. And I'm here because even if we had this when I was in high school, I wouldn't be half as good as y'all are.
Hi, I'm Jamie Olin, and I'm a former civil litigator. I now work for the nonprofit, the ASPCA, so I practice animal law, and I support criminal animal cruelty cases. I've been participating in the mock trial program for 4 or 5 years now, and it's absolutely one of the highlights of my year. It's so great to see what you all can do.
Absolutely. My name is Jennifer Ryback, and I practice at McGuire, Craddock, and Strother. I do business litigation and construction litigation. I am new to judging mock trial. Thank you for the invitation. You guys are amazing. Absolutely impressed by everything that you all have done, and happy to be here to represent the Dallas Association of Young Lawyers.
Hi, my name is Laura Benitez Geisler. I'm a plaintiff's personal injury lawyer here in Dallas. I'm also president-elect of the Dallas Bar Association. And I've judged this final round a number of times, and not to take away anything from the past rounds, I have to say this is really one of the best. Y'all are amazing.
Okay, my name is John Sholden. I am presently with the Dallas County District Attorney's Office Civil Division. Prior to that, though, I spent 21 years actually wearing a black robe, sitting on different benches. But probably my big claim to fame is most of y'all know this is the 39th anniversary of the mock trial competition that was started here in Dallas. I was on the first high school team that won. Back then, there were only 6 of us on the team. Only 4 teams participated. So, you know, the fact is that still we were the best. So, but out of the 6 of us that were on that team, 4 went on to become attorneys. So the fact is, it does start right here if you want it to, and outstanding. I mean, I got to tell you, get your resumes just ready, because you guys, there is no question, y'all are better than at least 50% of all the attorneys that have gone through law school and done everything else. You're probably better than more than that, but I figured if I said that, some attorneys would go, okay, time out. You guys are phenomenal, you're polished, you're phenomenal public speakers, you have obviously spent a lot of time doing this. And personal opinion, I wish they gave you the same recognition for this as they give those that win the state championship in football, basketball, and everything else. Parents, your principals, your teachers, everybody are very proud of you, and we obviously are proud of you too, because you really made Texas look good. So thank you very much. Now, turn it over to Ms. Quinn. Diddy's going to do the fun part.
Now we've got some hardware to give away. We're going to start by celebrating our 2 third-place teams. First of all, let's bring out the Judge Barefoot Sanders Law Magnet. Good work, guys. You guys had a remarkable season. Oh, there's one.
Get some people on it.
If you guys will turn your part sideways.
If you could turn inward, so turn inward.
There you go. Turn towards the side. There you go. And put your feet closer to the floor. That's my favorite. Because people.
Okay, look over here. It's gonna be 1, 2, 3, and I'll do just. Okay, just one more. All right. Okay, thank you.
Our second, third place team is the team from Covenant Classical. She almost got a flag.
I'm good. I'm good. It's been a long day. If you guys two will kind of turn inward, kind of do a little youth thing going on. Okay. All right. 1, 2, 3.
Alec, you're right.
All right.
As is our tradition, we now celebrate our second place team. I will tell you, as good a round as I've ever seen. Taylor and I were having the same comments about it. When you are really involved in writing it, like Taylor was. By the way, we didn't see Taylor at the banquet. Give him a hand. This case started with this exhibit. This is what we started with. And we came up with what I think is just a really great case. But we had a 6-3 decision, and our second place team this year is One Day Academy. Our state champion this year, Carrollton Creekview.
No, don't do that. But we're Team V.
All right, 1, 2, 3. Okay, wait. Oh my gosh.
Oh my God.
Got it.
I think I
Oh.
Okay.
Folks, with that, our season is over. Thank you so much for being here.